Yo guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we are going to go over some tips and tricks about how you can key farm more efficiently. So I'm going to go ahead and break this video down into 3 sections. The first section is going to focus on how you should be playing your character. The next section, we're going to go over specific pieces of gear that are commonly known for making really good T16 farming builds. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about stat priority and how you can optimize your T16 set. Let's go ahead and get started with how you should be playing. So the first tip that I have is related to killing the Rift Guardian. What we're going to do is we're going to town portal back to town before the Rift Guardian is even dead. We're not going to pick up any of the gear. We are just going to get back to town while he's going to die in the process. Not all builds are capable of this. However, all builds are capable of killing the Rift Guardian and simply skipping the gear, going back to town, and opting to start the 30 seconds that are going to close the rift. After you've done that, you're going to run back in, get your keys, get the loot, and just farm for the rest of the 30 seconds that you have left. Let me go ahead and demonstrate. Okay, so the Rift Guardian is up. Now he's dead. We port back to town and we start that timer. And now you can just spend the rest of the 17 seconds that are left just kind of running around, killing enemies, and getting some gear. Once this rift expires, it's just going to port us right back to town next to the obelisk that we need to open this. We're going to run over, open it, come back, salvage the gear that we have while it's opening, and then run into our next rift. With consideration to how many rifts we have to run to build up keys, using these 2 little tricks can add up to saving a lot of time over a large number of runs. We're starting the 30-second countdown faster, and we're not wasting any time during those 30 seconds. We're going to keep farming, picking up gear, come back, open a new rift, and then while it's opening up, just salvage the gear that you've picked up and go into the next one. As I had mentioned earlier, not all builds are capable of starting the town portal right when the Rift Guardian spawns. However, all builds are capable of quickly killing the Rift Guardian and immediately porting back to town to start those 30 seconds. Now, one thing I'd like to add about this is that so long as your character has good gear while you're doing these rifts, skip the drops while you're going through. Picking up items as you're going through a T16 rift is going to slow you down a lot. Now, if your character is not fully built, then I completely understand if you want to stop to pick up the items. However, if you have a T16 build that is completely capable of farming very quickly, you no longer need to pick up the gear that's dropping. What I would recommend instead is during those last 30 seconds, once you have opted to close the rift and the countdown timer starts, you've picked up your keys, go ahead and loot the rest of the gear from the Rift Guardian and just go around and pick up any legendaries that happen to drop that were nearby. This is still going to allow you to get some amount of loot while you're going through this, but it's really going to speed you up when it comes to actually getting keys. Bear in mind as well that when it comes to the crafting materials, the Rift Guardian drops a pretty decent chunk of them. So skipping all the blues and the yellows that are dropping on the ground is not that big of a deal because you're getting to the Rift Guardian quicker, who is going to drop the arcane dust and the veiled crystals for you. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into the next section. Now, the first thing that I want to note is it is really important to have a character or a build that is absolutely dedicated to farming T16 content. The vast majority of builds are not going to be using the same build for GR speed farming as they are for just key farming. So if we go ahead and look at my armory over here, I have my Fist of the Heavens T16 set right here. The armory feature is super easy to use, and it's a great feature for allowing us to switch between our T16 set and our speed farming set, and lastly our pushing set. Let's talk about some of the gear. One thing that is incredibly important for speed farming T16 is having a geared out follower with the appropriate items on. I would say that the 2 most important pieces for your follower are going to be the Avarice Band and the Nemesis Bracers. The Avarice Band is going to increase your gold and health globe pickup radius. What it doesn't say on there is that it also works for progress orbs when you kill elites. This is going to ensure that you don't have to stop each time you kill an elite pack. You can just keep moving through while getting the progress orbs to just naturally come to you. Of course, the Nemesis Bracers are fantastic because this just generates elites, which generates progress orbs. Next up is the Flavor of Time. This is a key item for your follower. It's both incredibly important for pushing as well as speed farming. I like using the Gloves of Worship as well. These are fantastic for T16 when there are just a ton of shrine effects. Stacking up all these effects and making them last for 10 minutes is incredibly valuable and is going to help you speed up. The last item is going to be the homing pads, and this one's pretty obvious. A lot of the times when we kill that Rift Guardian, we have have little straggler enemies that are going to continue to hit us while we're trying to town portal out. This is going to protect you from having to deal with that. And the last thing that I want to mention about your follower when you are key farming is make sure that your follower is benefiting from the 3-piece cane set. This is basically just going to occasionally give you a free Greater Rift key. Now let's go over a few key items that you want to put on your character for most speed farming builds. First up is the Warzeshian arm guards. Most T16 builds have a great spread of damage and are typically going to be wrecking all of these destroyable objects. This burst of speed is typically up a large majority of the time while you're going through your rift. Next up is that we want to be using the Boon of the Hoarder gem. This is going to allow us to get massive amounts of gold, but also to be faster pretty much the entire time that we're going through the rift. Okay, let's go over a few other pieces that I don't have on my character, but pieces that you should definitely be looking for your T16 farming build. First up is the Retchel's Ring of Larceny. We're using this for the 45 to 60% increased movement speed for 4 seconds after we fear an enemy. You'll also notice that this is one of 2 rings in the game that can roll Chance to Fear on hit. What we're going to do is we're going to pair this with the Pandemonium Loop. The Pandemonium Loop has 2 very important stats on it. 10 to 15% chance to fear on hit, and then enemies slain while feared are going to explode and actually fear other enemies to keep your movement speed buff up. Another great item to consider is the Krelm's Buff Belt. You're going to gain 25% additional movement speed. Now you're going to lose this after you take damage, and you're going to have to wait 5 seconds to get it back. But this is T16, and you should have a good spread of damage so that you are not frequently getting hit. If your belt slot is not essential to your character, I would highly recommend using this for the additional run speed. Gold Wrap can be really good if you are having toughness issues. On gold pickup, you're going to gain armor for 5 seconds equal to the amount of gold that you picked up. The synergy between this and the Boon of Hoarder is out of this world. You are going to be nearly invincible in T16 by using this combination. This is especially good at the start of a season or when you're first starting a new character. If you have any toughness issues, this will absolutely resolve your problems. A general rule of thumb when it comes to T16 is you should pretty much always be prioritizing your speed over your damage. In T16, it is pretty easy to get a character that is capable of one-shotting anything. Because of this, it is okay to drop certain pieces of gear that you're normally using as part of your essential set for pushing or speed farming, and instead just opt to go for speed. Okay, for stat priority, one thing to keep in mind is that area damage is not useful for T16. Depending on what build you're going to be playing, on pieces of gear that can roll area damage, they can generally always roll cooldown reduction or resource cost reduction as well. Most builds are going to benefit a lot more from one of those 2 stats as opposed to area damage, so keep the area damage off your gear. It is absolutely not helping. For your secondary effects, pickup radius is really good. Although we're going to be using the Avarice Band, which is going to give us a massive amount of pickup radius, we still want to stack more if we can. There's a lot of times when I'm playing this build and I'll kill an elite pack, and by the time I've killed it, I am too far away to actually get the progress orbs. Just having a few extra yards of pickup radius can help with that, or at least make it happen less often. And my last tip when it comes to your stats is if you're going to be using that Pandemonium Loop and Retchel's Ring of Larceny, make sure that your secondary stat that you're rolling on your helm is Chance to Fear. You can also roll Chance to Fear on your weapon and your shield or your offhand. The rings themselves, of course, also come with the Chance to Fear, so your character is going to get a very high chance to fear enemies on hit, which is really going to give you a massive movement speed while using that ring combination. I hope that going over this was helpful for some of you out there. Hopefully you learned something that you didn't know before, whether it's about gear or gameplay. Go ahead and drop a comment down below and let me know what your favorite time-saving technique is for key farming. If there's anything that I missed, please let me know down below. As always, folks, I genuinely appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.